Hey all you DM fans out there, or dungeon masters or GMs, or people who are just playing Dungeons and Dragons for the first time. I myself just started this year, and I'm 38. This video is just about it's never too late to start learning how to play Dungeons and Dragons, even if you've had weird connotations about Dungeons and Dragons over the years. If you were raised a Christian like I was, it was kind of a strange thing to be playing Dungeons and Dragons. It was evil and nasty and things could happen to you. I didn't play Dungeons and Dragons really for the first time until college, and at that point I was doing it just for a guy. He dragged me along to his games, and weirdly enough, I started playing Dungeons and Dragons after I had already started tabletop gaming and board gaming and lots of other games, video gaming. Didn't spend a lot of time learning any of the rules, and I think at the time there may have been a video program or a computer program that actually wrote up your characters for you, and you could come up with what they look like and what their stats were and roll stats for you. I'm not entirely sure. I really wasn't paying any attention. I was just there for my boyfriend at the time, which sounds really pathetic as I think about it. Back in the 2000s when I first played, I had a very memorable DM that ran for a while. A game that I really didn't get much into at all, but I knew he was a really good storyteller, and then my boyfriend at the time, wanting to impress me maybe, decided, oh, I'm gonna be the dungeon master, I'm gonna do it. Unfortunately, the dungeon master who normally ran the games for this group of players kind of had his own agenda when we were playing these games, and I'd find myself listening to his stories more than I'd actually be listening or figuring out what I was supposed to be doing, which is kind of a weird thing, but I'm sure if anybody has played Dungeons and Dragons enough, I'm sure you've had one of these people. In this case, it was an older fellow. I think he was maybe 10 years older, and he was one of those perpetual college students. I think he still kind of is. But what happened is that he played a half-orc barbarian, I believe, and who liked to be really clean. This was his odd, trait that he had picked out for himself. So, how most Dungeons and Dragons games start out. You start out in an inn. We all headed into this inn, and we meet up with this half-orc player who is inquiring about a bath, and he wants to possibly get soap for this bath, and the innkeeper goes, no, I don't have any soap, and he didn't, and all the stores were closed. So he's like, well, do you have the lard, do you have all the soda ash, do you have all this stuff so I can make soap for myself? So for the next few weeks that we played this game, we really never left the inn, or at least the half-orc player never really left the inn. And we may have gone on an adventure, I can't remember, but that was my initial impression of D&D. I kind of thought, this is sort of pointless, I don't get it, I didn't understand the numbers, they rolled the character for me, I maybe got to pick that I was an elf, maybe I was a magic user, I can't even find anything about it to tell you what I was. Fast forward to 15 years later, and my husband, not my boyfriend at that time, completely different guy, thank goodness, started playing with this group of people, and he used to play in college and maybe before that point himself, but he had gotten out of it for a long time, and we had gotten into anime and science fiction and all these other geek things, video games, computer games. He's into all of that even more than I am now. Suddenly they're playing D&D, and they're like, we're gonna get you to play, and I'm like, no. I remember what it was like back in college. It was really boring, and maybe there's some good storytellers. I kind of doubt that any of the people that I'm going to be playing with are going to be as interesting as this one DM was when he was playing a character. And it was kind of interesting because a few weeks into playing, they kind of hijacked me and had me come up with a character. I picked a gnome bard, basically. Um, it was all level 1. We played one game, and I started to get it a little bit, nearly as much as I would like to have gotten it. I still don't think I have all of the stuff that I need to get done. I think I need to play a lot more. I played like 2 or 3 times after that. Ellaby is my gnome bard. And I'm still not quite as flamboyant about my bard character as I'd like to be, and I'm starting to get that now. But what happened was that I was sitting one day in where I work at a craft store, and I just happened to like chuckle about something, and one of my coworkers looked at me and said, "What you chuckling about?" And I'm like, "Oh, this Dungeons and Dragons thing." And they're going, "Dungeons and Dragons? You play Dungeons and Dragons?" And I said, "Well, a little bit. I just started getting into it like last month, and we played it 2-3 times." And they're like, "Oh man, I'd love to play Dungeons and Dragons. I've never played." So then we started talking, and a few other coworkers kind of came up and were like, "Yeah, like I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons in either a long time, or I've never played it, but I've been watching these things on TV or YouTube, and I think Stranger Things got a big kick with these 3. Maybe not. Maybe it was just geekdom in general online, and everybody's kind of like, this is kind of interesting. We'd like to learn how to play." I'm like, "Okay, that's great. Let me find someone who could DM for it." I didn't want to like overwhelm them with the people that I had been playing with, because they're a little different. So I'm like, well, it can't be that hard, right? I'm like, maybe I'll just run a campaign for a week, and most of the time that I've ever done stuff, it's kind of like, let's be done with it, and goes for a couple weeks, and then nobody wants to do it anymore. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll write up a campaign real quick, and my husband's like handing me all this stuff that he's been like looking up for me, going, "Oh, here's all these pre-written campaigns. I'm looking at this information, and it's just like too much information, and it's information overload, and I can't even like get to the nitty-gritty of these stories, because I'm like, I just don't get it, and I don't understand it the way it's presented to me." And I went to school to become an author. It didn't work out as much as I'd like it to. You get into life and working full-time in retail, and suddenly that English degree kind of out the door, but I always loved writing, and I still write, and I always did a lot of stuff that I thought it would be kind of cool to be able to write up my own story. So I came up with the journey to Glenhaven, and more specifically, Glenhaven's unicorn kind of scenario that I came up with. So I came up with this very brief idea, and I said, all right, we're going to have this girl in town, and she gets sick. We don't know why, and the local wizard has just run out of his unicorn water, his blessed water that was blessed by a unicorn that he usually uses for all of his potions. He just happens to know that nearby there happens to be a unicorn in a wood. Problem is that there was a dryad, and her tree recently got struck by lightning, and she's gone crazy. So everybody in the wood is a little bit on the nutty side. Now, I hadn't run into the whole unicorn thing, that unicorns would be able to help those creatures and protect them and all that kind of stuff. That was way out of my league at the time. I was just like thinking, okay, unicorn, wood, crazy dryad, we're good. So I drew up a little tiny map about where the wood would be. I gave like 2 or 3 different scenarios of things that they could find that were buried in this wood by who knows. Gave them the unicorn that they could try to kill if they wanted to, but unicorns are way too powerful, so I kind of like would steer them away from that, but they'd also be able to either try to coax the unicorn into blessing some water, but there was also a fountain that was already blessed by the unicorn, and all I have to do is grab this water and take it back with them. So I set up the little town that they go to, the little inn, introduced them to the mayor, whose daughter had gotten sick, and told them that they needed to go to the wizard, who is requesting assistance in gathering this blessed water. So my group goes, and since it's their very first time ever doing Dungeons and Dragons, I'm pretty much doing almost all the storytelling at this point. And they're like, I don't know what to do. So I'm like, well, go to the wizard, go see him. So they go and they talk to the wizard, and the wizard has a little gnome bard, which was my character from my other DM, because I'm like, I'll just use this character I created anyway, apprentice. And she leads him out to this wood, and she goes, okay, here's the wood, go and explore it. See if you can find the unicorn, bring back the water. And oh yeah, there's a couple other items that we need too. We need like a feather from a flying snake, and what was the other thing? Oh, this purple flower, because he needed to be restocked anyway. And they go into the woods and they run into myconids. Now, if you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons, you know that myconids are actually Underdark characters. There was a hint in that, but my players never noticed that because they don't know anything about it. Because actually there's a dungeon not too far away, and if you're watching this and you're one of my crew, there was a dungeon not too far away that would have led you down in the Underdark, and the myconids were escaping that area because of something happening, but they didn't know this. I had it all kind of in a background thing as I'd gone along. Meanwhile, they had to fight some flying snakes. They accidentally killed the myconids, even though the myconids could have shown them to the unicorn, because they are typically more or less a friendly creature. And then they ran against the dryad. Thankfully, they were able to defeat the dryad, although our level 1 thief, which was a dark elf, was trying to go behind her to try to kill her, and it was failing miserably. But they managed to defeat her, and they managed to get the water, and they managed to come back. Save the day, and took me about an hour. Maybe it was like a 2-hour thing because nobody really investigated. If they did investigate, they didn't do a very good job of it because they were level 1 characters. I thought this was a pretty good mission for level 1. And at the end of it, even though I kind of just thrown it all together in a couple hours and had creature sheets and stuff written up for it, my players go, all right, what are you doing next week? What? I'm like, I've never done this before, yet all of a sudden all these people are going, well, we're all off next Thursday night, so we're going to do it again, right? I'm like, I guess. I don't have anything better to be doing. I didn't have like plans already. So then I spent the next week going, holy crap, I have no ideas. So I'll save it for another video what happens in the next one, because after that point things get a little crazy and I start expanding the map, and maybe I can figure out how to edit to show you what some of the maps and things are, and maybe even in this video I can show you what it looks like. No promises. I'm not much of an editor, and I have like Movie Maker, so if you get this and watch this and you enjoyed my video, thank you. It's just me rambling about my first time DMing, and I think as a first time DMer, it might be, if you have a creative background like I do, a storytelling background, it might behoove you to actually go ahead and create your own story. Look up the creatures in the books, add those into yours. But if you've had any amount of background in that kind of thing, you might want to just add characters that you know what they are and just go for it. Don't worry too much. Take the CR rating for your creatures so your creatures don't kill your first level players. But other than that, go ahead, try it. It might be fun. They might want to play it again. I've been doing it for a couple months now, and I actually enjoy it a lot. However, I have a lot more to learn, and I'll probably teach you guys about what I have to learn as we go. Until next time.